It lasted 30 seconds. 30 seconds of gunfire. And when it ended, one man was promoted, one man was dismissed, and the only witness who contradicted the story was gone. That is not coincidence. That is structure. In the Old West, gunfights were rarely clean. They were chaotic, loud, confusing. Smoke, blurred vision. Witnesses disagreed. Memory fractured almost immediately. This one didn't. Officially, the entire confrontation unfolded in less than a minute. Two armed men exchanged fire in the center town. Shots were counted. Actions were described. Motives were explained. The paperwork was precise. Too precise. Because in those same 30 seconds, something else happened. Something quieter, but far more permanent. A lawman was elevated. Another was removed from duty. And a civilian who offered conflicting account disappeared from the record entirely. The gunfight became legend. The aftermath became policy. And policy is where the real story begins. The town where this happened was not lawless. It had structure, a functioning sheriff's office, deputies, civic leadership, businesses that depended on stability. Public violence threatened all of that, which meant the explanation had to be immediate. According to the accepted account, the confrontation began with a routine dispute. Tempers escalated. Weapons were drawn. One officer acted decisively. The threat was neutralized. The narrative is efficient. It leaves no room for doubt. The promoted man was described as calm under pressure, quick, accurate, a stabilizing force in chaos. His actions were praised in local papers. Within days, discussions about expanding his authority began. The dismissed man was framed differently, hesitant, poorly positioned, slow to respond. Reports emphasized his failure to act. His removal was described as necessary for public confidence, and the witness, the one who claimed the sequence of shots was reversed, simply stops appearing in any subsequent documentation. No follow-up statement, no retraction, no testimony at any hearing, just absence. At first glance, this appears to be a story about competence and incompetence revealed under pressure, but the timing complicates that. Promotions in frontier towns were rarely immediate. They required meetings, votes, political alignment, reputation building. This one moved unusually fast. Likewise, dismissals typically involved review, deliberation, official reasoning. This one required almost none. The speed of administrative reaction mirrors the speed of the gunfire. That symmetry is not normal. Even more unusual is how cleanly the narrative settled. Witness accounts often conflict after violent events. Here, most public statements align quickly. The promoted officer's version became dominant almost immediately. Alternative descriptions faded. The press echoed a single storyline. Editorial language reinforced it. Words like heroic, decisive, and necessary appear repeatedly. The town moved on within days. But moving on requires closure, and closure requires agreement. What happened in those 30 seconds was violent, but what happened afterward was organized, because 30 seconds is not long enough to fully understand what occurred. It is long enough to decide what the town needs to believe happened. The official version insists the outcome was earned, the promotion was deserved, the dismissal justified, the missing witness irrelevant. That explanation feels stable, but stability achieved too quickly can hide something else. In chaotic events, clarity emerges slowly. Here, clarity arrived instantly. And when clarity arrives that fast, it often means someone was ready for it. The question is not whether shots were fired. They were. The question is how a moment that brief managed to reshape 3 lives, and why the only version that survived was the one that benefited the man who rose. Because gunfire fades, but reputation, once written into record, does not. And the story of this 30-second gunfight is not about the smoke in the street. It is about the decisions made after it cleared. Let's remove the legend. Strip away the adjectives. Ignore the headlines. Forget the word hero. What remains are 30 seconds. 30 seconds of noise. And a lifetime of consequences. The official narrative tells us the promotion was earned in the street. That courage revealed itself under fire. That incompetence exposed itself just as quickly. But how does a town measure competence in half a minute? How do you determine hesitation from survival instinct? How do you isolate bravery from positioning? How do you know who fired first when smoke fills the air and echo distorts direction? Who decided that? And how quickly? Because here is what the record does not emphasize. The promotion discussions began almost immediately, not weeks later, not after testimony, not after reconstruction. Immediately. Was a decision already forming before the gunfight? Were there tensions inside the sheriff's office prior to the event? Were factions already aligned? Was someone waiting for an opportunity to elevate one man and remove another? 30 seconds is convenient. It is long enough to justify action, short enough to prevent clarity. Now consider the dismissal. The removed officer was described as slow and displaced. According to the dominant version, he failed to engage decisively. But who defined decisive? If he hesitated, was it because the situation was unclear? If he didn't fire, was it because he saw something others did not? If he stepped back, was it caution or awareness? We are told he underperformed. Based on whose reconstruction? And where is that reconstruction documented? Frontier towns did not have body cameras. They did not have forensic analysis. They had testimony, which brings us to the witness. The one voice that reportedly contradicted the official order of events. He claimed the first shot came from a direction that would complicate the promoted man's version. He suggested that escalation may not have unfolded the way the hero narrative required. And then he vanishes. No formal testimony. No follow-up article. No explanation. People disappear in frontier history. That part is normal. What isn't normal is how convenient the timing is. Did he leave voluntarily? Was he pressured? Was his credibility attacked? Was he offered something in exchange for silence? Or did the town simply decide it did not need him anymore? Because here's the uncomfortable possibility. The witness wasn't removed from the story. He was removed from problem. Now look at how the press handled it. Words matter. In the first reports, descriptions are vivid but controlled. By the second or third retelling, the promoted officer's actions become sharper, cleaner, more cinematic. Hesitation disappears. Precision increases. Stories don't get clearer over time. They get edited. And editing requires motive. Was the town stabilizing itself? A public gunfight threatens commerce. Investment, migration, stability. A decisive hero restores confidence. A removed weak link restores trust. A contradictory witness destabilizes both. So what does a town choose? Order. And order requires alignment, which may explain why accounts synchronize so quickly. Ask yourself this. If the event was as clear-cut as described, why was there no formal inquest transcript preserved? Why no detailed public reconstruction? Why no adversarial questioning of accounts? If justice was obvious, documentation should be abundant. Instead, what we have is narrative abundance and procedural scarcity. The promoted man's career flourished. Did his authority expand because of skill, or because the town needed him to represent strength? Did investors feel safer? Did political allies benefit? Did rivals quietly disappear? The dismissed officer's reputation collapsed overnight. Was he truly incompetent, or was he inconvenient? Because in chaotic events, interpretation is power, and whoever controls the interpretation controls the outcome. Let's return to the 30 seconds. Gunfire, smoke, movement. How many shots were fired? Different accounts vary. Who fired first? Versions differ, except in the one that prevailed. Where was each man standing? Descriptions shift depending on the source. When clarity collapses into alignment too fast, you don't have certainty. You have convergence. And convergence can be organic or managed. Now consider this. What if the gunfight did not reveal character? What if it revealed opportunity? Opportunity to reshape leadership. Opportunity to consolidate authority. Opportunity to remove opposition. Because chaos creates openings. And openings, when seized quickly, look like destiny. The official story insists everything unfolded naturally. But natural outcomes rarely reorganize power so efficiently. A promotion, a dismissal, a missing voice, all in the wake of 30 seconds. That is not just consequence, that is recalibration. And recalibration suggests intent, not necessarily premeditated violence. but pre-existing tension, pre-existing ambition, pre-existing vulnerability. The gunfight may have been real. The aftermath may have been the true event. Because here's the question no plaque asks. If the witness had remained, if his version had persisted, would the promotion still have happened? If the dismissed officer had been politically aligned differently, would the interpretation of hesitation change? If the town had not needed a symbol of strength, would the hero narrative have formed at all? History tells us what happened. It rarely tells us why certain interpretations survive. And in this case, survival looks selective. The smoke cleared in seconds. The story settled in hours. Careers changed in days. And doubt disappeared almost instantly. That speed should bother you. Because in real chaos, clarity takes time. Unless clarity was already waiting. So ask yourself one final question before we move on. Did the gunfight change 3 careers? Or did 3 careers need a gunfight? 30 seconds. That's all it took, not to decide who lived, but to decide who would rise and who would disappear. The smoke cleared quickly. The bodies were counted. The street returned to normal. But power rarely resets to neutral after violence. It reorganizes. The promoted man carried the story forward. His name attached to order, stability, decisiveness. Over time, the gunfight became shorthand for leadership. The moment that proved him, the dismissed man faded. His hesitation, real or constructed, hardened into reputation. In the absence of recorded defense, silence became confirmation. And the witness? History doesn't say. No closing statement. No retraction. No burial record tied to controversy. Just a voice that stopped existing in the story the town chose to keep. The official version survived because it worked. It restored confidence. It simplified blame. It turned chaos into clarity. But clarity that arrives too quickly often hides something. Because real events fracture. They leave disagreement. They resist neat resolution. This one didn't. It aligned, almost immediately. And when alignment benefits one man, removes another, and erases the only contradiction, the gunfire becomes secondary. The real event becomes the aftermath. Maybe the promoted officer truly acted decisively. Maybe the dismissed one truly hesitated. Maybe the witness truly misremembered. All of that is possible. But so is this, that in those 30 seconds, what mattered most wasn't accuracy. It was usefulness. The town needed stability. The town needed confidence. The town needed a version it could live with, so it chose one. And once chosen, it stopped asking questions. Gunfights fade into legend. Promotions become history. Dismissals become footnotes. And missing witnesses become silence. If this investigation made you pause, even briefly, consider leaving a like and subscribing. It helps keep stories like this examined slowly, instead of accepted quickly, because sometimes the shortest events leave the longest shadows. And sometimes what changes everything isn't the gunfire, it's who benefits when it stops.